While driving to a spa, my wife called me her trained pet while laughing with her friends in the back seat. When we arrived, she slammed the door and told me to wash the sheets because they smell like me. I said nothing until she came crawling back, begging for a second chance. It was supposed to be a relaxing weekend. Lauren had been planning it with her friends for weeks. A spa retreat in the mountains, just the four of them, and I was the lucky volunteer who offered to drive them up. 5 hours through twisting highways, forest-lined roads, and winding elevation climbs. I filled the car with gas, stocked snacks in the console, even made a playlist of songs they liked. I thought I was doing a nice thing. Being the good husband. The dependable one. They piled into the car around 10 a.m. Lauren slid into the backseat with her friends instead of up front. "It's girl time," she said with a playful shrug. Her tone made it sound harmless. I didn't think much of it. I figured they'd chat, drink their iced coffees, gossip, and I'd just focus on the road. About 2 hours in, we were driving past a scenic overlook, winding through a sharp bend, when it happened. "Honestly," Lauren said, her voice clear as day, "he's like a rescue dog. You feed him, he wags his tail. So easy to control." Laughter. Not polite giggles. Not surprised gasps. Full, belly-deep laughter. Her friend Nora said, "Lauren. That's so mean," between cackles. But her tone betrayed it, she was loving it. "I'm not even being cruel," Lauren continued. "It's just accurate. I say, 'Can you take the trash out?' and he's like, 'Yes, ma'am.' I don't even have to try. I just hint that I'm tired and he does the dishes. He's like, programmed." More laughter. I didn't say anything. I didn't even flinch. I just kept driving, hands gripping the steering wheel tight enough to turn my knuckles white. My eyes didn't leave the road. I didn't trust them to. My face didn't change. I didn't glance in the mirror. If I had, I might have broken something. For the next 3 hours, they kept talking. Some of it normal. Some of it, more barbed. I caught phrases like "so boring," and "he thinks being nice is enough." They didn't know I could hear every word. We finally pulled into the spa resort just before 3 p.m. It was everything Lauren had described and then some. Tall pines surrounded the property like sentinels, their shadows long across the manicured gravel paths. The main building looked like it had been airlifted from a luxury magazine, stone walls covered in ivy, glass windows reflecting the clear mountain sky, and steam rising from a tucked-away hot spring like a mirage. The women were buzzing. Lauren's voice shot up an octave as she pointed out the courtyard. Nora pressed her face to the window and squealed, "That's the sauna dome I saw on Instagram." The others clapped like children spotting fireworks. I parked the car near the entrance. The valet approached, but I waved him off. This was my responsibility, apparently, to deliver my wife and her friends to paradise. I turned off the ignition and reached for the trunk release. I had the words "we're here" on the tip of my tongue. But Lauren had already opened her door. She stepped out without hesitation, stretched long and slow, her white zip-up hoodie tightening across her back. The rest of them followed, shrieking at the cool mountain air, already half in vacation mode. I moved to unbuckle and help with the bags when I heard her voice, calm, dismissive, and loud enough for the others to hear. "Don't forget to wash the sheets before I get back. They stink like you." Then, slam. Door closed. Sharp and final. The other women didn't laugh. But they didn't react either. One of them raised her brows as if to say yikes, but not enough to stop smiling. Lauren had already turned away. I don't think she even realized or cared that I was watching her. No thank you. No wave. No acknowledgement that I'd spent 5 hours behind the wheel, skipped work, and planned around her schedule. I was just the background noise. She slung her weekend bag over her shoulder, the one I bought her last Christmas, and walked up the gravel path with the rest of them like I wasn't even there. Like I didn't exist. I sat in the driver's seat, unmoving. One hand rested on the wheel. The other still hovered near the trunk button. There was something surreal about the quiet that followed. Like the moment after a gunshot, where the ringing hasn't faded yet, but everything feels muffled and strange. I didn't shout after her. I didn't follow. I didn't run up and demand respect. That would have been expected. Predictable. And right then, I wanted to be anything but. Instead, I stood up, walked to the back of the car, and removed their bags with robotic efficiency. Placed each one gently near the stone steps leading to the entrance. Even adjusted one so the designer logo faced forward. Presentation mattered to her. Then I got back into the car. Closed the door softly. And drove away. There was a part of me, small, weak, persistent, that expected her to run back, knock on the window, flash that manipulative smile and say, "I was joking, babe." But the spa disappeared in my rearview mirror, swallowed by trees and sunlight. And she never looked back. That was the moment something unspoken between us died. And whatever came next would not be forgiveness. The road home was familiar, but it felt alien. Trees blurred past like ghosts. The sky darkened gradually as I descended the mountain, but inside the car, time didn't pass the same way. I drove with a strange stillness, hands steady at 10 and 2, not speeding, not slowing, just floating in that mechanical hum of tires on pavement. I didn't turn on the radio. Didn't even crack the windows. Just let the silence settle, thick as fog. What do you do with 5 hours of silence? You take inventory. Not of things, but of damage. You rewind through 100 little moments and play them again with new clarity. That time Lauren laughed when I cried during Marley and Me. You're so dramatic, she'd said, not unkindly, but not kindly either. The birthday she forgot twice, but bought her boss a $400 decanter for his. The first time she made fun of the way I folded laundry and insisted on doing it herself, but only until the honeymoon phase ended, and then I was incompetent and stuck with the chore. 1,000 paper cuts. I thought they were part of marriage. I didn't know I was bleeding out. I pulled into our driveway just after 8 p.m. The sky was that cold steel color it gets before snow. Our porch light flickered on automatically. I stared at it for a second, just the light, swaying a little in the wind, casting shadows across our welcome mat. Home. Except it didn't feel like mine anymore. I stepped inside, turned on the lights, and kicked off my shoes. The house was still. The thermostat blinked 66 degrees. Too cold for her, but just right for me. I didn't adjust it. I didn't do anything except drop my keys into the ceramic bowl on the hallway table, the one Lauren bought from a street vendor on our anniversary trip to Santa Fe. She insisted it had soul. Now it just looked like pottery. I wandered into the kitchen and opened the fridge out of habit. Half a lemon. A tub of hummus. A bottle of almond milk she never finished. I closed it again. No appetite. I stood there a long time. Not thinking. Just being. Eventually, I went to the bedroom. The sheets she said stank like me were still on the bed. Crumpled, slightly cold to the touch. I sat on the edge and stared at the floor. The silence in the house was deeper than the drive. It wasn't just quiet. It was indifferent. And that's when I felt it, not sadness. Not rage. Just a hollow calm. Like someone had taken all the emotional furniture out of me and left a clean, echoing space. I slept on top of the covers. Fully clothed. No lights. Just the dark and the faint sound of my neighbor's wind chimes. That night, I dreamed of nothing. When morning came, I made coffee, black, no sugar. Sat at the table and stared at the same spot she used to sit, legs tucked under her in that way that made the chair squeak. She wouldn't be back until Monday. That gave me time. By 9 a.m., I had called a lawyer. By 10:30, I was researching separate bank accounts. By noon, I was changing passwords. Every one. It didn't feel like revenge. It felt like relief. A quiet exhale after years of holding my breath. Let her come home thinking I was still the same. Let her walk through that door expecting the man who carried bags and bit his tongue. I give her one last performance. And then I'd write the final act myself. Lauren came back Monday evening. Not early, not late. Right on time. Predictable, as always. She texted here from the driveway instead of ringing the doorbell, even though she still had a house key. I was already waiting in the kitchen, a casserole warming in the oven, not for her, but because I knew the scent of baked cheese and garlic always calmed her nerves. Old habits, I guess. Or maybe part of the act I was about to perfect. She came in talking fast, carrying that same energy she had when she left. That place was divine, she said, tossing her bag by the door. We need to go sometime. Together, I mean. You'd love the eucalyptus steam room. I smiled, nodded, kissed her cheek. She didn't seem to notice I didn't ask about her trip. Didn't notice how my smile didn't reach my eyes. She did, however, glance at the laundry basket in the hallway. Oh, you did the sheets. Thank God. They were starting to smell funky. Then she laughed, in that soft, offhand way she had when she wasn't really joking. I told her dinner would be ready in 10. She changed into her favorite robe, the plush one I bought her for her birthday 2 years ago, and padded around the house barefoot like nothing had changed. Like she hadn't gutted me with a sentence and slammed the door behind her. We ate. She talked. I listened. That night, she curled into me like always, sighing contentedly as if this our life, our routine, was still intact. I kissed the back of her head and whispered, I missed you. A perfect lie. The kind she would believe. Because that's what she always saw in me, someone safe. Someone easy to trick. What she didn't see was that while she was soaking in mineral pools and gossiping with her friends, I was reorganizing everything. Bank accounts were already separated. The joint account? I drained half my half and secured it in a new account under my name only. Passwords? All changed. Streaming services, utilities, even the garage opener. I gave her just enough access to not notice anything different, yet. I'd already scheduled a consultation with an attorney, someone with a reputation for being ruthless. I told him everything, in detail, even the line about the sheets. He had smiled slightly, not because he was amused, but because he understood. She thinks you're still the dog, he said, tapping his pen. You're the wolf now. I didn't correct him. The next day, I pretended to go to work. Instead, I went to a bank downtown, opened a safety deposit box, and placed a USB drive inside every piece of evidence I'd been collecting. Voice memos. Screenshots. Bank transfers in her name she thought I hadn't noticed. She made it easy. She always underestimated me. Each night that week, I played the role she expected. I washed dishes. Rubbed her feet. Laughed at her jokes. Made love to her like a husband desperate to keep his wife. And each morning, I added another piece to the file. A quiet record of who she really was. She thought I was healing. Submissive. Back to normal. But I wasn't repairing our marriage. I was preparing for war. The first true crack in her mask came on a Thursday. She came home late, too late. Said she'd stayed out for drinks with her coworkers. Her eyes were a little too wide, her smile a little too forced. I didn't ask questions. That was the trick, you see. The less I asked, the more she revealed. While she peeled off her heels and flopped onto the couch, I sat across from her, pretending to scroll on my phone. In reality, I was watching her reflection in the dark screen. Studying her posture, her micro-expressions, the way she bit her lower lip like she used to when she was nervous about something. She reached for the remote, but I gently touched her wrist and said, "Let's just talk for a bit." She blinked. Talk? Yeah. We haven't in a while. She hesitated only for a breath, but I caught it. Sure, she said, shifting to face me, curling one leg under the other like she always did when trying to appear open. We talked about work. About Nora's wedding next month. About how my car was due for service. And through it all, I kept that mask on, calm, attentive, warm. She relaxed. Thought she'd reeled me back in. What she didn't know was that earlier that day, I'd met with the accountant. A friend of my lawyer's. We went over every shared asset, every financial trail she'd left behind, some of which she thought she'd hidden. Multiple Venmo transfers labeled brunch that didn't match her calendar. A sudden uptick in ATM withdrawals from a bank she claimed to hate. A rental charge for a car I never saw her drive. Spousal concealment is hard to prove, the accountant had said, but you've got enough breadcrumbs here to bake a damn loaf. That same night, I accidentally left my laptop open on the kitchen counter while I showered. An email thread visible on the screen, just vague enough to pique her curiosity but not enough to be obvious. When I came out, the lid was closed. Interesting. The next day, she bought me a pair of running shoes I'd mentioned once, 3 months ago. My favorite color. Perfect size. I just saw them and thought of you, she said. She never bought spontaneous gifts. Ever. And just like that, I knew she felt something shifting. She didn't know what. But she knew I wasn't quite the same man she left at that spa parking lot. That weekend, I invited her to dinner. Somewhere nice. Somewhere where she could feel like we were getting better. I dressed in the shirt she liked. I ordered her wine without asking. I even took a photo of her smiling and posted it on our socials. A memory. A timestamp. Afterward, in the car, she squeezed my hand and said, "You're really trying lately." I see it. I appreciate it. I nodded and said, "So are you. I think we're turning a corner." And she believed me. She fell asleep that night in my arms. While her breathing deepened beside me, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling fan spinning in slow circles. I wasn't turning a corner. I was drawing the finish line. The envelope arrived on a Tuesday. Plain, unmarked, clinical. It was sitting on the kitchen counter when I came back from my morning run right beside the fruit bowl. Lauren was at the stove, making herself eggs. She didn't look up when I walked in. She just said, "You got something. Think it's from a lawyer or something?" I opened it without speaking. Divorce papers. Filed under her name. Inside, demands. Neatly typed, impersonal. She wanted the house. Half of all financial accounts. The car. A monthly support stipend until she adjusted. There was no mention of the things she'd done, no acknowledgement of betrayal, or the casual cruelty of her words. It read like a woman cashing in on a life she'd been waiting to exit from for a long time. "I hope we can do this peacefully," she said, still not looking at me. "I've already spoken to someone. It doesn't have to get messy." I looked at her. The way her shoulders were relaxed, her voice cool, collected. She really believed this was her move. That she'd played the perfect long con. I nodded slowly. "Sure," I said. "I'll review everything." That flicker in her eyes. That quick scan of my expression, searching for a sign of outrage or despair. She found none. She was braced for a reaction she never got. And that unsettled her. She went back to her eggs, flipping them with a little more force than necessary. Later that day, I made my move. I walked into my lawyer's office with a folder in hand, neatly labeled, color-coded, dated. Inside were weeks of evidence. Financial manipulation. Recordings. Screenshots. Memos detailing her withdrawals, her mocking words, her plan. "She thinks you'll cave," my lawyer said, leafing through the documents. "She has no idea." He filed the counterclaim within 2 hours. That Saturday, while she was having brunch with her friends at the same spa resort, ironically, she was served. The process server told me later she went pale, completely silent, and simply said, "Thank you," before folding the documents back into the envelope. I waited. The silence that followed was delicious. At 3:12 p.m., she texted me, "What the hell is this?" I didn't respond. At 4:06 p.m., "We need to talk. This isn't fair." Nothing. At 6:22 p.m., "You're overreacting. Please, can we just talk this through like adults?" I muted her thread. She came home that night with her makeup smudged, heels in her hand, looking less like the polished woman I'd known and more like someone fumbling for control. She didn't yell. She didn't accuse. She just asked, "Can we talk?" I said, "Of course." We sat in the living room. She started with the tears. Soft ones. Apology tinged. She said she was scared. That she didn't know how to ask for what she needed, so she tried to take it instead. That she didn't mean what she said in the car, that she was just trying to make her friends laugh. "I lost sight of what we had," she whispered. "But I see it now." I nodded. "I believe you." Her face lit up. A spark of hope. She thought the door was still open. That's when I handed her the folder. Inside, my finalized terms. No house. No spousal support. No access to my accounts. No car. Just closure. She opened it slowly, her eyes scanning the words like they were written in another language. She didn't understand, not at first. Then she looked up at me, mouth slightly open. You're serious?" I nodded. "Very. I don't have anywhere to go," she said. "That's unfortunate." Tears filled her eyes again, but I'd seen them before. Practiced. Convenient. Empty. She had spent months preparing her exit. Her grand plan. Her clean getaway. But while she was rehearsing her final scene, I rewrote the entire script. The final act didn't explode. It unraveled. She stayed quiet for the next few days. I gave her space, let her stew in the silence she once used as a weapon. She paced the house in soft slippers, talking on the phone in hushed tones, sometimes crying behind the bathroom door. She tried to cook one night, her famous risotto, the one she always made when she wanted to fix things. I didn't eat it. I told her I had dinner plans. I didn't. I just drove around town, listening to old jazz and breathing air that didn't smell like her perfume. By Thursday, she had packed a few bags. No announcement, no scene. Just the sound of zippers and hangers clicking together. I came home from work and found her sitting at the edge of the bed, coat already on. "I'm going to stay with Nora for a while," she said softly. I nodded. "Okay." "You really meant it," she added, like it hadn't fully settled until that moment. "You're really done." I didn't answer. I didn't need to. She walked to the door, turned the knob, hesitated. I hope one day you'll remember the good things." "I do," I said. "That's why I'm not screaming." She looked like she wanted to cry. Maybe she thought tears could buy time, or mercy. But all the emotional credit she'd ever had with me had long since run dry. When the door closed behind her, I didn't breathe for a full minute. I just stood there, waiting for some kind of emotion to rush in. It never came. Peace isn't loud. The next morning, I changed the locks. I finalized the transfer of ownership on the house. My lawyer moved fast, he liked clients who didn't waver. Her lawyer called mine 3 times over the next week. Tried to renegotiate. Threatened court. My attorney sent back the voice memo, the one from the car ride, where she called me a rescue dog. Said I was so easy to control. The laughter. The mockery. The slamming door. Funny how quiet her team got after that. A few weeks later, I got the final papers. Everything signed, sealed, approved. She got none of what she wanted. Not the house. Not the money. Not the life she planned to walk away from me with like it was a suitcase. She moved into a studio apartment on the other side of the city. I only know because she emailed to ask if I'd forward some mail. I didn't answer. I sent the mail. No note. The last message she ever sent came on a gray Tuesday afternoon. An email. The subject line read, "I'm sorry. I didn't open it. I didn't need to." What could she say that would rewrite what had already been written? She had turned me into a punchline. Built a version of me in her head that was obedient, pitiful, harmless. And then she laughed about it. Bragged about it. Weaponized it. But the joke wasn't on me anymore. It was on her. Because the man she thought she could control was the one who ended up holding the pen.